Now, let's talk about Jesus' ministry. Jesus did around 37 miracles that are recorded in the Gospels. Which one was the greatest? Was it the greatest to make the blind to see? No, because after a few years, they started losing their eyesight. Like everyone does, wear glasses and get cataract surgery. How about the deaf being made to hear? That's a great miracle, but after a while, we all start losing our hearing, especially if we listen to stuff too loud, they're hammering rocks. What about the people that he fed, the feeding of the 5,000? That was an incredible miracle. But after a day or two, they were all starving again. The greatest miracle Jesus did is the one he's still doing, and it's our greatest need. And we covered it in verse 5. Our greatest need isn't happiness. That's what Generation Alpha, they have a new generation, the Generation Alpha. They want to be happy. It's not happiness, it's forgiveness. And that's the miracle that Jesus still does. Of the 37, the greatest miracle Jesus does is the one everyone needs. It's forgiveness. Now, let me tell you about, before we go, we only have 3 minutes. You and I are called, remember I said at the beginning of this hour that we're supposed to hold on to Christ, and wherever we go, we're supposed to promote him. You and I are called to keep sharing Christ's greatest miracle. The greatest miracle that Jesus is still doing, I have witnessed him doing. I witnessed it myself. It's forgiveness. And we get the privilege of leading people to Christ and watching him change their lives. So I want to tell you about one person, my friend Daniel. I have 3 minutes to tell you. I'll tell you fast. When I was writing my dissertation for Dallas Theological Seminary, it's called Living Hope. It's a devotional look at the book of Revelation. So I was writing it away, and I couldn't do it at the church because every time I was at the church, people would knock on my door, and I had a policy. Anybody that knocked, I'd talk to. And so I had to leave the church, and I would go for my lunch hour to Starbucks, and I wouldn't eat. I would just get a cup of coffee to hold my table, and I would work on my dissertation. Every day when I went there, in the same Starbucks in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I noticed this guy, the one that slid my cup up, and he would make my venti flat white, or whatever it was back then, and he would slide it across to me and say, venti flat white for John, and go like that. And for just a moment, I would see his eyes. You know how people glance at you and then they go back to their work. I started noticing his eyes were going from the white of his eyes to orange. Let's see, someone there, orange sleeves right there. That gentleman has orange sleeves. That cooler over there is orange. You know what orange looks like? Do you know what orange eyes means? His liver was failing. It's called hyperbilirubinemia. And so I noticed his name tag. His name was Daniel. And I said, Lord, I would like to share the gospel with Daniel, but I don't know how. It was the busiest Starbucks in Tulsa. There were always a line. They even had the waiting lines like they have at airports to go like this, to order your stuff. I said, Lord, I don't want to take his time and witness to him with 20 people being angry. I said, if I go into Starbucks and no one's in line, I'm going to share the gospel with Daniel. Well, I forgot I said that. And I did pack a tract in my wallet. And one day when I went in, there was a line, and I got in the line, and as I went like this, and went like this, and finally went to the counter, there was no one behind me. It never had happened before. And I thought, this is my moment. And so I said, venti flat white. And I ran down to this end where he was going to give it to me. And there's still nobody there. So I got my tract out. And Daniel made my drink and slid it across the line. I said, Daniel. And his orange eyes widened because I said his name. I'd never said his name before. I could read, Daniel. I said, Daniel, you know what? I said, I've been coming in here for weeks, and I said, I've noticed your eyes are turning orange. I said, you're overdosing on something. I said, one of these days, you're going to wake up and find yourself in hell. And someone came in line, and I pulled my tract out, and I opened it up. I said, here are verses. You need to read this. I said, this is the only hope you have of not going to hell. And I left. Well, I was back the next day to see if he read it. He wasn't there. I was back the next day to see if he was there. It wasn't there. A week went by, and finally I asked the cashier, I said, where is Daniel? She said, I don't know. A week ago, she said, he walked out of here and never has come back. I thought he died. So I prayed for him. 6 months later, I'm back at my table still writing my dissertation, and I saw him. I didn't tell you. Total black, metal, chains. He was goth, the whole thing. Came up to my table, and I looked up, and there he was. And he looked at me, and those eyes were wide, and they were pure white. And he looked at me, and he says, "Hey, man, I've been looking for you for a long time." He said, "Do you remember you gave me the track?" I said, "I do." He said, "You scared the hell out of me." He said, "I walked out of that Starbucks as soon as you gave it to me and read that thing. I didn't want to go to hell." And he said, "I've been looking for you ever since." He says, "I'm now the main singer in a heavy black rock something group." And he said, "I share my testimony, the guy that scared the hell out of me everywhere I go in the country." He said, "Thanks for sharing the gospel. Share it with the people you least think are going to listen, and watch God change their life."